Hello and welcome to Game Brain, a board game podcast about our gaming group. I'm your host, Matthew Robinson.
And I am your host, Tom Donnelly. And if you have both Matt and Tom on the same episode, you know this is something special. This is round 11 extra.
Or somebody flaked.
Or somebody just didn't show up.
Just pooped the bed.
But that
didn't happen, though. This is on purpose.
This is a very special episode of Game Brain.
Oh.
This is round 11, extra turn, because, ladies and gentlemen, Maddie, tell everybody why this is such a different episode.
Well, you're wearing pants, and this is the 100th episode.
100th episode! Yeah, it's kind of amazing. When we started this, you and I did the very first episode about 2 years ago, right? What would you have given? What's
funny? Today, I got a notification. Today is the anniversary of the Twitter account made for this podcast. So it's exactly 2 years today. I made the Twitter for this podcast, and today is episode 100.
What would you have put the odds at that we would get to episode 100 2 years ago?
Well, the whole point of the podcast was to make one that was foolproof, wherein I'd never had to book guests. It was okay if I missed episodes because we had so many other people that could handle it. And it seemed like, I already spend all of my free time thinking about them and playing games. Yeah. So I didn't have to do work for it. So it seemed like the goal was to create a podcast that was just what I would want to be thinking about and talking about anyway, and would involve absolutely the minimal amount of effort on my part.
Yep.
And yet it proved to be too much to me after about a year when I had my second child, and Tom came in as our full-time host. And that probably has a little bit of something to do with an announcement we're going to make today as well.
Maybe. And then 1 year in, when everything shut down and we went into quarantine, what do you think the odds were at that point that we'd make it to episode 100? Because we picked a very interesting time.
At first I thought we were in trouble. And then, because it seemed like nobody was very excited about playing online games. And we had never really, as a group, played games online before. Like,
it's true.
A couple apps here and there through the ages, some things we got into for moments there. But like, we had never, as a group, sat down and opened up Tabletop Simulator and play a game together in the 10 years that we've been playing games together.
Yeah, it's true. I have a particular aversion to it. So that maybe plays into it to some degree.
But I think it was the episode where we did Fort, where I reviewed Fort, that I realized we were going to be okay, because that was the first time that I saw everybody become comfortable with Tabletop Simulator, and it became a thing where I would just throw out a text to some of the people in the group and be like, I'm free for an hour. Anybody want to jump on? And it happened enough where I was like, oh, this is actually almost easier to review a game now, because I actually am getting more reps in of a game than I usually.
Yeah, because you don't have to drive over to anybody's house. You don't. The scheduling requirement has lessened for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to 1 to 2 game nights a week, so I was getting 1 to 2 plays of a game in, and we may not play that game at both of them. So for sometimes reviews would take a month for us to play a game 4 times, and now it's very easy to play a game 4 times in a week.
And for me, it also forced us to change our focus a little bit, which I thought was a really good thing, which is we were heavy into the cult of the new. There is a certain thing. You're doing a board game podcast. There's a new game coming out. People want you to review it. That's just naturally going to happen. But because of the quarantine, we started doing reviews of games we love, games from yesteryear, games from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I think peppering that in, having that be something that periodically we will be doing, I think it, for me, certainly breathed a lot of fresh air into the podcast. Because, listen, even when we go back to having game nights, I don't want to have to play this game, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a span of a couple of weeks and then review it. Like, I want to also have my game night. I want to be able to play some other things. So being able to review games that we love, that haven't been reviewed yet, I think is a really, really good thing. And I think necessity being the mother of invention, I think the quarantine helped us do that because we literally had to at a certain point.
Yeah, I love that we're building a library of game reviews. I mean, we now have over 90 game reviews because not every episode has had a game review in it, but I'd say about 90% of them have.
Yep.
And yeah, that's a lot of games that if because a big thing that I do, if I'm interested in a game, it's not always a new game. And I often I want to, when I'm taking a walk or on a run or whatever, like I search my podcasts and see if anybody's ever reviewed it because I'm interested in hearing some thoughts. And I love that I think now are up there with any other board game podcast in terms of like just overall breadth of reviews. Like if you're looking for a game, if you're looking for a game in the Board Game Geek Top 100, we've probably reviewed it or most of them at this point.
Yeah, I think we've done a huge number of them for sure, and we'll continue to do so going forward, which is, it's pretty much what we wanted to do. Somebody on Facebook was commenting. They wanted to thank whoever was doing our annotation. They said that our annotation is, they said it's the best. They said it's really top notch. That with hyperlinks and really good details of exactly where in episodes things happen. And we should say there are two people that have been responsible for the longest time. Dimitri would be doing our annotations, and for the last 9 months, Trey has been doing them, and just talk about a not an easy job, especially when we have the top fives and things like that, and we're throwing out 20 games in 5 minutes. That's not easy to annotate. So.
And that was. I mean, when I was first sort of coming up with the ideas, that was on my list of must-haves. Was because if we're going to do a board game podcast, like for me, I'm always annoyed when I pull up a board game podcast and just want to jump right to the review or just want to hear about a specific game. I'm not going to listen to your 2-hour podcast to try to find it. I'll just not listen. So I really wanted to make it accessible. And yeah, I did the first 10 episodes, and I was like, nope, don't have time for this. So I'm really glad that Dimitri stepped up for probably 50 episodes, and Trey's been here for the rest. And yeah, really, I think it's a great resource, and I wouldn't want to do a podcast without it.
I'm super glad that you insisted on that. It was it really is a differentiator and makes this not just something you listen to, but a resource that you can go back to, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Really good. Well, should we get to one of our little things? This is going to be a different episode. We're not going to be doing a lot of our normal segments. We're just going to sort of have a conversation about the past 100 episodes.
It's not a clip show.
Nope.
It's not a clip show.
No, but it's a reminiscing show.
At the end, we have a big surprise for everybody. Do you want to tell everybody what this big surprise is, Tom?
Yes, we decided that what could we possibly do for the 100th episode as sort of a little. Part of what we say about Game Brain is that hopefully part of the reason that you like it, certainly a reason people have put out why they like our podcast, is that they feel like they're getting to know an actual gaming group. And we're an actual gaming group. We get together regularly when we are under quarantine, and we hang out and we really enjoy each other's company. So we decided
like most of us are best friends, if not very good friends. Like we're all really quite good friends in real life, talk regularly. I think I talk with almost everybody pretty regularly.
Exactly. So we decided that we would want to give you a glimpse into a Game Brain game night. So what we did was we recorded 9 out of 11 of us playing a game of Avalon. And Maddie, where is this going to be? First of all, it's going to be at the end of this episode, but where else will it be available?
We also recorded it on Zoom, so you can see 9 out of our 11 lovely faces playing Avalon together. That link will be in the show notes right below, or you could always go to the Game Brain YouTube if you are a subscriber to there. If you're not, go ahead and subscribe to the Game Brain YouTube, and you'll see it there live with the podcast. You can either listen to it on the audio or listen to it with video as well. It should work either way in terms of being able to follow what's going on.
The only two people that were not on there were Jennifer, who said, thank you, but I don't really like that game. And we said, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And Alfred, we recorded it, he's over in Boston. And once Wheel of Fortune is over, he's in bed. So
yeah, he's 3 hours ahead of us and also doesn't love the game. So he had 2 great excuses.
Exactly. So let us get to our first little conversation point, right? Maddie and I passed back top 5s or interesting questions and things, as sort of like getting to know where we are at. And this was an interesting one, since we're both writers, since most of us are actually writers when you get right down to it. This was an interesting one. Maddie said, what are your top 5 fictional board game worlds? I thought that was pretty fantastic. All right, I am ready with my number.
Well, actually, okay, I think we had different interpretations of that question.
What do you think?
Mine was top 5 board and card games from fictional worlds. Fictional board games or card games.
Oh, damn.
Well, now we have 2 different questions. You'll answer the one you thought I was asking, and I'll answer the one I thought I was asking.
All right, well, let me think. No, I can probably on the fly do it. So give me your number 5 from a fictional world.
My number 5 is from a book called Interstellar Pig, which is a mildly obscure fantasy sci-fi book from the 80s that was actually turned. It's basically, which is interesting. It was written in 1984, and the characters in the game are playing a fictional board game, and it's called Interstellar Pig, and it's basically cosmic encounters with Avalon mixed in. There's hidden roles, everybody's a character, and then halfway through the book, they realize that the people they're playing with are aliens, and it's not a game, and they actually are all of these secret identities, and one of them is a traitor. And it was turned into a board game already, designed by an LA native who is constantly at our local game conventions trying to sell this game, and it's called Chaosmos. And that is he made a board game of the game they're playing in this book called Interstellar Pig. That's my number 5.
All right. My number 5 on the fly is Cones of Dunshire, which is
great.
Yeah. There are certain shows that you can tell at least one writer in the writer's room, and oftentimes more than one writer in the writer's room is into games. And certainly when Parks and Rec broke out Cones of Dunshire, it became immediately evident that they were way into this, and the obscurity of the rules and how many times they came back to that in episode after episode. It was just, it seems like generally when games are brought up in television shows and movies, it's kind of it's kind of a wink and a nod to geek culture, and it certainly very much was in this case. And
it's become a shorthand that we use in our group a lot for a game that's insanely complicated and that only one person enjoys.
Yes, exactly. I would say John Company is coming out with a second edition that's good, because edition 1 of John Company is kind of
super Cones of Dunshire.
It's very Cones of Dunshire. What is your number 4, Matt?
My number 4 is Gwent from the Witcher universe. Gwent is an incredible card game that actually then went on to become a video game of itself that is the card game, and it's really fun. And it reminds me of a very complicated version of like Lost Cities. It's kind of like we make rows of numbers and we're trying to beat each other's numbers, but then it gets crazy complicated because every card has its own power. That was like maybe my favorite part of The Witcher, was playing the actual game inside of the video game Witcher. And I was so glad when they made it into an actual game, because it was a really great game.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
So mine are definitely going to be more games that you can't actually play because they don't exist, but they're referred to.
Only 2. Yeah. Well, yeah. Some of mine ended up actually becoming real games, right? Like Chaos Versus Gwent. Yeah. But they all started as fictional games that then somebody decided to make real.
My number 4 is going to be along the lines of Cones of Dunshire, but 30 Rock took their own stab at this, and they did the Colonizers of Malar. They had several mentions of it, and then one entire episode dedicated to Jack Donaghy, Alec Baldwin, becoming obsessed with losing this incredibly complicated. I mean, it's
clearly an homage to Settlers of Catan, though, with that title.
Well, that's the title of it, but when they're talking about the trading and the this and the that, it definitely started to feel like, well, it seems more like it's Settlers of Catan meets Gloomhaven, right? It had all sorts of.
It may have been people who weren't necessarily gamers writing about this.
Maybe. I mean, listen, South Park. We know that they are way into games. I mean, the game library behind the characters in that are very serious, very good games, and we know that they're into it. Orphan Black, I don't know if you ever saw Orphan Black, but there's
I saw season 1, yeah.
Oh, season 5 or something like that. There's, they're hiding out in this basement of a comic book store, and there's way into games. They're even playing some of our favorite games in that sort of thing. But Colonizers Malar is definitely something where they're, it's 30 Rock, so they're gonna take a couple jabs at you. But it was fun. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Sabacc, which is Star Wars poker.
Holy cow!
Famously, the card game that won Han Solo the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian. But yeah, Sabacc. I've never actually played it. I know that people have attempted to make versions of it. I believe Disney even has their own licensed version that you can buy at Star Wars Galaxy and play Sabacc. But yeah, I haven't heard it's a wonderful game. But it's definitely a fun, famous game from a famous fictional universe.
I could take a picture of my screen right now because my number 3 game is Sabacc.
Nice.
It is. I didn't love Solo, but I loved I loved that part of the backstory of. I thought that Donald Glover did such an amazing job with his own interpretation of.
Yeah, those Sabacc scenes were great.
They're fantastic. They're just absolutely, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, nothing more to say because you already said it. But that was my number 3. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Tak. Tak is a chess-like abstract from the Kingkiller Chronicles series by Patrick Rothfuss. And Tak was a game that was mildly described in the books. And then somebody reached out and said, I believe the story is a board game designer who loved the books reached out and said, so I took the 4 rules you put in and made a whole game out of it and fleshed out the rest. What do you think? And the author loved it, and they ended up streaming it and playing it online. And then they ended up selling the game to a game company, and it went on Kickstarter. And I own a copy of it. And it's actually a really fun, well thought out abstract. It's really interesting and thinky, and reminds me a little bit of Santorini with these beautiful different shaped wooden pieces, and there's a cap, and you have to cap certain things. It reminds me a lot of Santorini without the special powers, but I love that somebody literally in the books it's described a couple times, barely, you could maybe think of what it is, and I love that somebody took the few details and then designed an entire game out of it that actually is now a very well-selling board game.
Not bad. My number 2 actually did become a game. My number 2 is Triad or Pyramid. Battlestar Galactica.
Super impressed that you threw this together on the fly, by the
way. Yeah, no, you gave. All I needed was a minute, and I'm like, okay, I could probably do this.
Yeah.
So, Triad or Pyramid was the card game from Battlestar Galactica. The Viper pilots would play it all the time. In the more recent edition, Starbuck is a master of it. I think both Starbucks were actually very good at it. And sure enough, they turned it into an actual game on the Geek from 1980. Just look up Pyramid and you'll see it. The designer is Carl Rasmussen. So, and it has those hexagonal cards, 55 card hand. My guess is that it is going to play very much like a regular card game, that they're going to have, the suit and rank and so on and so forth. Never played it, can't speak to it, but
but it's funny hexagonal shaped cards, right?
Yes, it is.
I remember that from the show. Yeah,
very much so. And last but not least, what is your number 1 fictional?
My number 1 is the board game we all wished existed when we were children. Think of it in your mind. I would be surprised if we're thinking of anything different. It's Dejarik Hollow Chess from Star Wars.
Yeah. Yep. I
didn't
go that way, but
I would go to sleep at night dreaming of one day owning a Dejarik Hollow Chess set and having my Rancor slam your piece to the ground. And yeah, it still doesn't exist. 2021, I still do not own Dejarik.
I mean, first of all, 3D chess is not a good game anyway, right? We can admit
no,
that.
but Dejarik is not 3D chess. It's just it's creatures killing each other on a chessboard on I think an octagonal shaped chessboard, I believe.
Yes, but in that sense though, isn't it Titan? Don't we have things that are
probably. They made a version, like there was a Commodore 64 version that was like clearly inspired by it. I'm trying to find the title of it right now. But yeah, I remember as a kid, my dad had a Commodore 64, and I got it because I was like, "This is like Dejarik." I don't think I even knew it was called Dejarik. I just called it like Star Wars game. But yeah, let me see if I can find it. It was super awesome. I loved it. Yeah, it's not coming up for me. But yeah, holochess. Like people have made versions of it. Like, okay, so actually, somebody did make Dejarik as a board game. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously not holograms. I want actual holograms that are moving around, and it's a circular board, not an octagon as well.
Right. My number one, I went a different way with this. I channeled my inner Dimitri, and I went with The Glass Bead Game by Hermann Hesse. Hermann Hesse's last novel was The Glass Bead Game. In Germany, it was called. What was it called? Megaster Ludai, for the master of the game. And it is it was published during the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany, and was kind of his utopian answer, his anti-fascist statement about that. And the game, the Glass Bead game itself, is the rules are never explained in the game, but it is sort of the synthesis of human learning. Musical phrase or philosophical thought can progress and become, it's sort of, you take one theme and you blend it into another theme. It seems very impossible to even grasp, but it is this kind of idealized, by being the best at this game, you're the best at moving through the process of human thought and becoming a better person. So anyway, Glass Bead Game. Now, can we do my version of fictional board game worlds?
Yeah, I'll see what I can do here. Sure.
All right. So I will talk slowly for the first one. So we are talking about what game worlds. So I'm going to name board games that exist that the world is fascinating. Right?
I can do this. No problem. I'm in.
I bet you can. Yeah.
Good to go.
We're pros here. My number 5 is Dungeon Lords. Dungeon Lords by Vlaada Chvátil is this great. It actually mimics a early video game called Dungeon Master, I think I want to call it, where you are the master of this dungeon, and your job is to build out your dungeon and feed your creatures and make sure everyone is happy. And then the bad guys are the adventurers that are coming in and stealing things and wrecking everything. And so it is trying to build a better dungeon. Dungeon Lords has one of my favorite rule books of all time. The way it describes how each action space acts and why they are the way they are is absolutely hilarious and really, really wonderful. And I could totally see a comedy, a workplace comedy set in a dungeon that borrows heavily from the game Dungeon Lords. Maddie, you got a number 5?
I do. My number 5 is the Splotter game Bus, because I want that world to come to life where there's time traveling buses and high stakes stress of dropping people off and building routes. And I feel like that's an awesome, maybe it's like a Miyazaki style thing with like cat buses or I don't know, but I'm picturing something very Phantom of the Toll Booth-y in its artwork.
Yep.
I just think the fact that they threw in time travel in there into a pretty simple like route building bus game makes my imagination go wild.
Did you say Phantom of the Toll Booth? I would love to see Phantom of the Toll Booth. My number 4 is probably already on your list that you're just drafting up right now, and that is Anachrony. Anachrony is just a great world and a great setting. The idea that you can go into the past and you can borrow things that you're going to need up in the future to forestall or to save humanity from a cataclysm that we know is coming. The fact that we need suits to move from place to place and to navigate this dystopian future, but it's essentially hopeful because we're really trying to save each other. The different clans and the different disciplines in the game, they all fit toward a fairly writ large, cyberpunky time travel thriller.
Love it.
What about you? Number 4.
It is on my list, but we're not there yet.
Gotcha.
My number 4 is Blackout Hong Kong. I always thought that was a really great like world they had created there. There was very little going on, but I loved the idea. There was just a simple idea. All the power's gone out in Hong Kong. It's not coming back on for like 3 days. Water and food is not going to last, and the government has collapsed. And like people have to come out and like figure out how they're going to get the whole city to survive and not fall into chaos. And I always thought like I would super watch that movie. Like it's almost, I would imagine it's like The Martian meets a disaster movie. Like a major disaster hits a city, the infrastructure goes to hell, and like we have to science the shit out of this.
Yeah,
and
when I think about it, I think about Irwin Allen movies, right? I think of Towering Inferno, I think Earthquake, or the more modern version.
But instead of like, just disaster porn, it's like a very methodical and mature and well thought out, like, how are we going to save the city? We all must come together and like it's a movie about good Samaritans, like with the backdrop of disaster. And I just always thought that was a really cool theme.
So, but you're suggesting that in the midst of a disaster in which the human death toll could be huge, that people will come together and work together.
It's much like The Martian. It is a movie about hope and optimism, and maybe not reality.
Love it. Love it. My number 3 is High Frontier. Probably. As far as and it's fictional only in the sense that it's so close to reality, but we're not there yet. The exploration of space, the competition to get out there and to expropriate space, to turn it, rather than instead of just into pure scientific exploration, to turn it into a place where we can live and work. The Martian you just mentioned, I think of I think of all sorts of things like Outland. I think of the realistic science fiction, the Expanse series. I think that the world of High Frontier is hard science exploration of our solar system, and the number of stories that come out of that setting for me are just infinite.
Yeah, awesome.
What about you? 3.
My number 3 is Root. I would really like to see Root come to life. I love a hardcore PG-13 to R-rated war movie about lovely woodland creatures. I want the Saving Private Ryan of cuddly forest creatures going to war, people dying, having to be taken to, med camps where there's just people bleeding out, losing limbs, like the birds are attacking. Here come the mole people, watch out. Like I'm getting hyped right now. I want to watch that movie.
It would be good. It would be good. I don't, for some reason, I don't like the animals, but there's no question that it
is. In the
game
or out of the game?
Oh, in the game. I don't like the war game, but we're gonna give cutesy animals to it.
I love it.
I think I was scarred by Watership Down, so maybe
sure.
Maybe that's why.
It's poor bunnies, those poor bunnies.
Well, why are we showing kids a fascist polemic? I don't understand. Well, an anti-fascist polemic, but
yeah, well, that's why.
Horrible.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Tricarian. I think that Tricarian is such an interesting setting. Like, first of all, I love The Prestige, right? Even The Illusionist.
I was just going to say, didn't they make it? Isn't it just The Prestige?
Well, except that you have the Academy and you have these stones, and within the game, it's sort of set in a world in which you are doing stage magic, so you're doing tricks. But there's also actual magic that also exists, and it's kind of it's not clearly laid out in the material, but but I love the idea of what if magicians are each trying to up one another. They're trying to do better tricks. They're in a very normal sort of competition, but that camouflages an actual magic that exists, that they have just that, and that's what they're really trying to plumb the depths of. I think that could be really interesting. What is your number 2?
My number 2, you called it out already, is Anachrony, a fantastic game. It's basically Zardoz the board game with time travel. Just the weirdest, bizarre, sort of strange future dystopia with idols and giant stone heads. I just feel, I mean, I don't know if the designers or the artists were like loved Zardoz, but I always think of Zardoz when I play that game.
Totally.
Which is, if you've never seen Zardoz, I do not recommend you see Zardoz.
Yeah. I mean,
I also totally recommend you see Zardoz. It's a fantastic John Borman movie that time has not been kind to, but it is incredible.
Connery in a thong, man. Just soak it in. Soak it in. You'll love it. You'll love it.
The gun is good. The penis is evil. That's a line from the movie.
It is. That is an actual. Somebody wrote that actual line. Yes. Showed my son Hobbs and Shaw the other day, and he looked at me and said, "Armageddon, Schmarmageddon. Somebody actually wrote that." I said, "Yes." Matter of fact, I know that was Chris Morgan. He wrote that. I know Chris Morgan. All right. I have a feeling your and my number one are the same project.
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so?
No.
Interesting.
I know yours isn't.
Really? Okay. Well, then I'll give my number one. My number one, and I feel like if this isn't your number one, I think you're going to be kicking yourself. I don't understand what.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm excited to hear it.
Right. Netrunner.
Yep.
Without a doubt. I think you and I have had this conversation. I think that as far as fictional board game worlds, I think there is nothing that activates.
No, that's right. That should have been on my top 5. That's really good.
Right? It is.
Yeah. I mean,
every card.
We both love the Bridge series by William Gibson.
Yes.
Which is a massive, beyond influence. I mean, it's just they just took things from it without paying for the IP.
No, I mean, to the point that you can't really make Neuromancer now. You can probably make Count Zero. You can probably do Mona Lisa Overdrive. You can probably do some of his other works. I think Spook Country, I think some of his more recent stuff is kind of interesting. So, but we love William Gibson. We love the attitude of good cyberpunk, and Netrunner. It is dripping. It is dripping from every single card. Is just filled with...
I also played a lot of Cyberpunk 2077 recently, so I feel like I've been in that fictional world for a while. So that's probably why it didn't come to mind, because I was like, they kind of nailed it there.
Got it. What is your number one?
Well, number one is one of my favorite games of all time, and I just absolutely adore this world, and that's Too Many Bones, the world of Daylor. When you first see it, you go like, oh, it's your basic fantasy trope, but they really pushed themselves, I feel, to come up with some really great twists on the fantasy genre. I mean, it's basically, you've got gnome hobbits, little small creatures that are brilliant with tech. So you get something that's not too normal in fantasy, which is like sort of high tech, technologically advanced hobbits who have lived in the forest forever. And the world is being overrun by these tyrants that are sort of like warlords, like sort of gangsters. But each gangster is like a terrifying monster, and they're sort of they've been like raising the forests, and these poor little gearlocks that have been living in harmony for so long have now been forced into the big city, and they're like in this walled-in city that's protecting them, and nobody wants to go out and fight the warlords. And the warlords are like, it's like the mafia and the yakuza, but instead of mafia and yakuza, it's terrifying monsters. And they're just like, they've like taken over the world, and these little tiny, like 2-foot tall, technologically advanced people are just like, nah. We're going out in small parties, and one at a time, we're going to take these warlords down, one at a time, until we conquer all of them and take the world back. And I've just always been like, that theme just sparks for me.
It's a good story. Just a good story, right?
It's a very fun story. It's just these little tiny technological geniuses who are like, yeah, we're small, we're weak, but we got some tech that and we're going to take down these like gangsters and like free the world. It's awesome.
It is pretty good. It's pretty good. I want to be careful about our time, so let's just jump right into the next topic. And I may cut some of the things at the end if we need to. All right.
Yep.
So when you proposed this podcast and started to put it together, you said you wanted to do a segment in which people could write in and ask us questions, then so that we could help them. And I said, so you're talking about kind of like a game sommelier kind of thing, and then it just stuck. And still one of our favorite segments, right? One of our favorite things.
Yeah,
we have done. We've done over 100 sommeliers, because even though some weeks we don't have one, occasionally you do. You just go burden through 3 or 4 in one episode. So we definitely have hit over 100. So my question is do you have a favorite sommelier that has come up? I do.
Well, I'm gonna help you save some time here, because I don't.
That's fine.
There wasn't one that jumped out for me, and I've done so many. And when I do them, I erase the emails so I don't ever do the same one twice.
Right.
So I couldn't even go back and look. So we'll save some time here, and I'll let you answer.
Done? Okay. My favorite sommelier was the hardest sommelier for me. It was incredibly difficult. We have a listener from Germany called Thomas Kuhn, and Thomas Kuhn has actually posts quite a bit. He's asked us several sommelier questions. He's active on our Discord. He has invited us to stay with him when we go to Essen. To Essen next. I asked, do you plan on eating us? And he said, no, I don't plan on eating you. So we have a promise that he won't eat us. But he had this thing where he said, I'm going to take part in Mombatsmarsch. And I was like,
oh yeah, you're right. This would if I had remembered it, this would have been mine. This is an awesome one.
Right? Which is in 24 hours, he is going to walk 100 kilometers. That is 62 miles. He's going to walk in 24 hours, and said, what is a game that I can play with my friends while we are walking continuously? And I was like, I got nothing. And caused me to start doing some research into what are the games with the fewest components, what are the games that you can do in your mind and all that sort of stuff, and actually found some really interesting answers to that. But of all the sommelier questions, that was the closest to stumping us, I think, and was just...
That's awesome.
Right? Wasn't that just an amazing thing to come up with? I was like, holy cow. And not only that, but I kind of want to do Mombatsmarsch now. I don't know if I can walk 62 miles. I mean, it's literally...
That's quite a lot.
It's literally keeping up a pace of about 3 miles an hour for 24 hours straight. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if I could do that, but it would be kind of amazing, right? Anyway,
keep the sommelier questions coming in for the next 100 eps, please.
Please do. We really do love them. All right. Now we get to another top 5. Here's the top 5 games.
And it's always contact@gamebrainpod.com.
Yes.
That's where you email us.
Yes, indeed. Top 5 games we haven't reviewed yet. We can
do this one quick.
We can do this one quick. This is important because, as I said, we do want to be reviewing games that we love that haven't been reviewed yet, right?
Let's make a pact, Tom.
Yes.
If we have any crossover here,
yep,
we'll put them to the front of the line.
We put them to the front of the line? Yeah, I agree. 100%.
If we have any crossover here, we review them quickly.
100%. 100%.
Okay.
All right. You're number 5, sir.
Number 5 is Too Many Bones. It's ridiculous that I haven't reviewed this yet, at least on solo mode.
Yes. Agreed. Love it. It's not on my list. My number 5 is Antiquity. Might be my favorite splatter of all. It is an astonishing game, and the fact that we've talked about it a lot, but we've never reviewed it, it's probably due. You're number 4.
I have a feeling this might be on your list.
Uh-oh.
Glory to Rome. I think we can review Glory to Rome.
It is not. It was.
Whoa.
It was. No, it's in my. I wrote 10 games that we haven't reviewed yet, and it was in my 10, but it's not in my top 5.
How have we not reviewed that masterpiece?
Right. Carl Chuduk, classic, absolute classic. My number 4, though, is a Roman game, Tribune.
We haven't reviewed that yet?
No.
That's crazy. Well, I assumed we did. We have to wait for the new version that comes out to review it, I believe, and we can do a comparison.
Exactly.
That's coming out soon.
By the way, if anybody wants to know what the greatest expansion that has ever been released is, it is the Tribune expansion. It is astonishing. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is Lisboa. I think it might be one of the only Lacerdas we haven't reviewed yet. And when Jennifer brought it up the other day as one of her favorite games, I was like, man, we need to review that.
That's a good point. Interesting. No crossover yet. My number 3 is Fresh Fish. We talk about Fresh Fish a lot, but I think it's one of those games that we do need to do a review and just dive into it and sort of show people what it is and why it is why it is so beloved with our gaming group, for sure. Number 2.
Wow, are we gonna have no crossover here?
Maybe.
My number 2 is Panamax.
Oh,
One of I think a Euro classic. I think it deserves so much more attention, and I think we need to shine a spotlight on it because it is an incredible game with some very interesting mechanics that have never really been used again.
Paul would review that in a heartbeat. So absolutely.
So would Trey.
Yeah, absolutely. My number 2 is Volenstein. We have a friend of ours, Ben, who doesn't game with us very often and is kind of more of an Ameritrash gamer. Not so much into the Euro games, came over and I was like, "What are we going to play with Ben?" Because, hey, listen, Ben is particular. He wants to he wants to have fun. He wants to play, and when he doesn't like a game, he's going to tell you. So I brought out Volenstein, and he absolutely loved it. It is one of those great Euro designs that actually crosses over really well for a lot of people in a lot of different groups. Amazing design. We need to be doing that. Dirk Henn, classic. Okay.
Awesome.
Brings us to our number 1. We've had no crossover so far. I don't think we're going to have crossover here.
I don't think. I mean, but this one is listed. I've listed it forever as my favorite game of all time. Trois. We've never reviewed Trois. That seems crazy.
It's bizarre that we haven't reviewed.
How have we not reviewed Trois?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Super weird.
Yeah, I know. We reviewed my number 1 game of all time.
Yeah.
So why not Maddie's? It's not fair.
We had no crossover. That's crazy. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is the game that I've tried to make it a segment, not just a review, but a continuing segment on our podcast, and haven't had success yet, but I will. And that is Diplomacy. Until you play Diplomacy, there's definitely a BC and AD to it, right? Once you've played Diplomacy, every game is Diplomacy, right? It is absolute classic, one of the oldest games that really said so much about modern game design, and we haven't reviewed it yet, and we have to. I think Trey and I at one point, we both have won the, back in the day when the LA Diplomacy Championship was 7, 8 tables, each of which had 7 people at them, so 50 plus people playing high-level Diplomacy. Trey and I have each won that competition, so we should definitely have a little deep dive into what makes Diplomacy so amazing and so awful. It's just horrible.
I can't believe you didn't have Ricochet robots on your list.
Well, I didn't. The reason I didn't put Ricochet robots
Magic Eye the game.
No.
I see the boat. No, I see the boat first.
No. You know what? The people that say that, it just means they're not very good at Ricochet robots.
I'm horrible at it, and I don't enjoy it. It's Magic Eye the game. Everybody stands around staring at a picture, and the first person who sees the boat wins.
Except that it's not something that you're trying to physically do, but it's a mental calculation.
Well, it is, because you're using your brain in a way that mine doesn't work, so it's physical.
Okay, next category, reviews that changed our minds. We reviewed a lot of games on this. We come in hot. We come in with some hot takes. But every once in a while, we have a game that we thought one way about it, and then after we played it, and after we did the episode, we came out with an opinion we weren't expecting to have. I've got 2.
Another title for this segment could be episodes that cost me money.
Yes.
These are games that I was not planning on buying, that after listening to the review, even I went out and bought it.
Yeah, and for me, my examples are more on the side of did not see that coming, right? Didn't think that I could be talked into this, but I definitely was. Yeah. How many do you have?
I've got 5.
Oh, okay. I only have 2. So why don't you start off?
My number 5 is The Cost. Was not on my radar, wasn't interested in it, and I'm dying to play it now. My number 4 is La Granja. It's a game that was not on my radar at all. I liked the designer, but I felt like I had heard enough that it was like okay. But after listening to the review, I went out and it was, I think, on sale on Amazon for like $20 or $30, and I picked it up.
You gotta grab
dying to get that to the table. My number 3 is Ora et Labora. Listening to that episode with you and Elder just made me want to look more at it, and it had been totally out of print forever. And right when you guys did that episode is when a new printing was like coming out, and I jumped on pre-ordering it, and I'm so glad I did because I absolutely love it. I'd played it, I think, once with you at a con, and never really thought about it again. But now it's easily one of my favorite Uva games.
And you know what? Or Labora could be my number 3 because it was one of those games that I always loved it. But it was definitely second, third tier Rosenberg for me. And then playing it with Elder and with his first of all, with his mastery of the game, he's very good at it. And with his love of it, I saw it through his eyes, and all of a sudden I'm completely smitten. And it is way first tier Uwe Rosenberg, which is just amazing.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Russian railroads. Now, I always liked, I own it. I own German railroads. I own the American railroads expansion thing for it. I always liked it, but I always thought, meh. It's good. It's just not something that I would bring out. But once again, seeing Alfred, who has played it hundreds upon hundreds of times.
He's one of the top-ranked players of it on BGA.
He showed me that it has depths that I did not understand. He showed me that it has.
It was on my honorable mentions list. It was would have been my number 6 for sure.
Yeah. So always liked it, but he changed my mind into realizing no, this is a game of depth, and this is a game worthy of study. So Russian Railroads, totally. Your number 2.
My number 2 is Blood on the Clock Tower. No interest, didn't care. I was like, Quinn's called it the greatest game of all time. That annoyed me. I thought it just felt like that was ridiculous hyperbole for a $100 game nobody had played before. And your guys' episode made me hyped for it, and I backed it. And I'm excited to get it when it comes out in, I believe, 2034 is when they're estimating it's going to come out now.
Look, I love Quinn's, but yes, no, that's a ridiculous statement. It is, but that said,
no, it's ridiculous. I don't think he doesn't feel that way.
No,
but I do feel like they sold 5,000 copies based on saying that, and that's quite. I mean, and that game better deliver, and it hasn't even. It's still in pre-production. I mean, it's like what it's officially like not a great Kickstarter in my opinion now. Like now I'm like, are you kidding me? Like we still don't have this game. That was like 5 years ago, and it's like does not look like they're making great progress. And correct me if I'm wrong, but
my understanding is that they're getting there, but I'm still not hearing anything concrete. So.
The whole thing feels like a little bit of an S show to me at this point.
We'll see. We will see. You know what? That could have been on my list too, because it was one of those things that I heard the amazing, amazing reviews, like we just described. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, it kind of looks like Werewolf to me.
Yeah.
I don't see it being that different. And then playing it, I'm like, oh no, this is different enough.
And, and hearing Jesse's experience of it made it sound really fun.
100%. 100%. And the number 1 review.
I think we have the same number 1. Let's say it at the same time. Ready?
You think so?
1. Okay, I'm gonna count down from 3.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Everdell.
Democker.
Oh, what?
Okay, so bear with me. Everdell could have totally been on my list too. But bear with me. Democker. I'm talking about the new version of Democker, which is what we reviewed.
That's right. You were ready to just poop all over.
Oh, I had the knives were out and sharpened, and I was ready to tear into it because they were destroying something pure and beautiful. And I have to say, having played it enough, as I said in the review, turned me around. I'm like, you know what? It's not my favorite version. I still prefer the big long version. But
Grass to Birmingham, like it's just a different variant.
I won't go that far, but I will say that they made some very smart decisions in terms of how to take a very long, very complex game and make it slightly less complex and fairly decently less long. They made some great choices as far as that goes. So I thought that was very, very well done, and I was really I could not have walked into that review more biased, to be honest with you. I try not to be biased as much as possible, but when it's your favorite game of all time and they monkey with it, you can't help. It's going to be there. So I was glad that I was able to keep an open mind enough to see it for what it is and say that, hey, this is really good. Tell us about Everdell, because I totally agree. Everdell should be.
Yeah, I had written off Everdell as like, just not for me. Light, silly, not my vibe, not my thing. And hearing you particularly being like, well, this game's really good. Wait a minute. And then it made me buy it, without ever having played it.
I was shocked how good it was.
I absolutely love it. And my wife loves it. It's the only game that we play together. I enjoy it. I'm like obsessed with it. I have all the expansions now.
Are you gonna get the ultimate?
It's a fantastic engine builder.
Are you gonna get the ultimate edition?
Already did, my friend. Already backed it. Of course I did. I mean, I don't need to get the I get the next 2 expansions and the big box that'll hold it all, which is going to be necessary.
That's correct. Yes.
But yeah, I adore it. I'll play it anytime. It'd be in like my top 20 games of all time. I think I love it. I absolutely love it.
And you're only maybe 4 years away from being able to play with Strider.
100%. Don't think I don't consider that when I make purchases like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it is accessible greatness, which is, that's the hat trick right there. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's amazing. All right, and that was reviews that changed our mind. We only are going to have time for 2 more things, so we're going to do the next 2 on the list, and this one may be my favorite. What is your favorite Dimitri rant? We can say
this first. I listed them all. I think it'd be fun to read. There's 10 of them as we are at episode 100.
You read them all out, but we're just gonna say what our favorite one is, and let's
read them all out.
And let's set the table. We always knew that we had a very special snowflake in our group, and his name was Dimitri Portnoy. We always knew that there was no other snowflake quite.
We don't mean snowflake
like him. No, we don't mean it in the way. We mean in the way that he is unique and no one is like him. Right. He is
it's not a derogatory liberal sense.
No, not in that. Though probably too. But no. Dimitri always is a man of he is a learned man of strong opinions, and he is just so unique. And it was sort of one of those things that we should have seen it coming, but we didn't. I didn't predict it. That once the podcast started going, people were like, this podcast is really good, but dude, you got to check out these Dimitri episodes. They're quite something. And
another podcast made a whole episode based on one of his rants.
Yes. The train guys did do that, and it was amazing. That was incredible. Yeah. And listen, let's say why this is the case.
Was it the train rush? It was the train rush, right?
The train rush.
Was that
yes.
the name of the podcast?
Yes. These two Brits in England heard it and thought, oh, you know what? We can do our version of that. I believe also Joel Eddy of Drive Thru also was talking about Dimitri at one point. So Dimitri's getting around. Listen, he puts in the work. Of all of us, he prepares for his episode weeks ahead of time and comes in ready to go. So ready that he doesn't really need a host. He's just ready to say what he wants to say, which is amazing. Dimitri is a gem and a treasure, and it's always great to be his friend and to let him shine as he has so much in this. So tell us the 10 episode. Here's
the 10. So I'll do them in order from round 1 to round 10. So first was games versus simulations, arbitrary versus robust. Second round was Dimitri's top 10 big questions about games. Round 3 was Dimitri's segment game shows. Round 4 was the intersection of games and books. Round 5 was Dimitri's favorite things, Penelope suitors. Round 6 was games as entertainment. Round 7 was evangelizing for games. Round 8 was games that are fun even when you're playing badly, which is the one that I believe the Train Rush made an episode about, and it was an episode called House of Fun. And round 9, Dimitri's 10 new questions for gamers. And round 10, how heavy Euros promote friendship.
Really, what more need be said?
Can we all agree on the same? I think we have the same one here, right?
I don't know. I think we do, though.
Okay, my favorite Dimitri rant was, of course, Penelope Suitors.
No question about it.
Absurd.
He was so wrong. And he's talking
I don't know if it was wrong. It was just crazy. I still couldn't tell you anything about it. But other than that, I aged 4 years during it, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. And I hope someone does an episode about that so they can explain to me what he was talking about.
Here's the thing. it was a contentious thing. Like, generally, Dimitri comes in and he knows what he wants to say, and he's just going to say it. Dimitri is not a dialoguist; he's a monologuist, right? To some degree, he creates situations where you can talk, but he's not going to be moved off of his points. And in this
I don't think I said a word for 40 minutes.
Yeah, I was the one arguing with him the whole time in Penelope Suitors. I was the one. I was just.
Oh, that was you on that episode, not me?
No, it was me. Yeah.
Oh, wow. See, I put myself there.
No, I totally get it. I totally get why. No, and I was a classics minor, so I'm telling him, I'm like, that is not what the Suitors are about.
That's so funny. I totally put myself as the co-host on that episode because I was like, what is going on?
I'm like, what are you?
And this is not a diss to Dimitri in any way, shape, or form. I adore it. It's the fact that I was so kerfluffed by it is why I adore it.
His argument was that gamers are the suitors in Penelope Suitors. And I said to him, are you out of your mind? They are the bad guys. They are the worst people in the world. And every Greek would understand exactly. They are layabouts. They are opportunists. They're ready to be murderers. They're the ones that are going to snatch victory from Odysseus at the end of the whole Odyssey. And he was like, no, they're good people. And he's like, I think that Odysseus is horrible. I hate him. And my jaw, if you could have seen me in that episode, my jaw was on the floor the entire time. It was a classic Dimitri. If you haven't heard that episode, absolutely, you have to check that out. Do we know what season? Can we direct people to exactly where that episode is?
Yep, that is round 5. You will find round 5, and you'll see Dimitri's episode there if you go to our website.
Oh my God, yes. I can even tell you exactly where it is. It's bus. Yeah, so round 5, turn 1.
Episode bus. There you go.
Yes. Round 5, turn 1, and yeah, it was
amazing.
Just amazing. And
well, I think that could be the end of our lists, Tom, because we are at an hour, and the Avalon game is an hour.
We want to thank our crew. We want to thank the Game Brain, everybody that is a part of our gaming crew. We already said you guys are our best friends, and we literally couldn't have this podcast without you, and the variety of viewpoints and the variety of what you bring each week is what makes this so special. And we should put a shout out to some of the people. We already mentioned Trey and Dimitri for doing the annotation, which is a huge job. Yeah. Week in, week out. We never talk about it. We should thank them especially for that. We should thank Edamaros, right? Edamaros Peleg.
Edamaros Peleg does all of the artwork for our show. Out of the kindness of his heart, he will not allow me to pay him. I promise you, I have tried. I've sent him gifts. I don't have a way to pay him. If he gives me one, I will. I don't know. I'm so indebted to him and all the work he's done. And he really does do it out of the kindness of his heart, as much as we try to help him and give him I swear to God, I will pay you at tomorrow's.
We gave him 2 free T-shirts. I think is the only thing he's accepted from us, which is just insane.
I feel like I've sent him a game at some. I don't know. Let me know Edamaros just rules. He just rules. And then Liam York does our website. He does a fantastic job. He's an incredible website designer. I'm going to tell you how you can get in touch with him there. If you go to our main website, at the very bottom, which is gamebrainpod.com, at the very bottom, you'll see a website by Liam York, and you can click on his name and it'll take you to a site. If you need a website designed, you will not find a better, faster, more personable. Anytime we something breaks on it, I just email him. It's fixed immediately. He's just on it. He's great. Very talented. Both of them, Edamaros and Liam, are awesome.
And we should also thank the fans. When we started this, we didn't know how this would go. You know, Maddie had get up on this. So Maddie had a very successful a podcast, and how much of the people from that podcast would come over was an open question, and how we would find our audience was another open question. And we just want to thank. I think we've been humbled and blown away by the response to the podcast. The people who join us on Discord and have very long, very intricate discussions about all kinds of topics. The people on Facebook, and how kind our fans, our listeners have been, has been just mind blowing. Right?
Should I make my somewhat sad announcement?
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. Yes,
it's not necessarily sad. So I've done this before and I need to do it again. I'm going to be stepping back a little bit from the podcast as a regular co-host. When my second child was born, I had to return to just a once per round guest because of having a second child and both of them were under 2. And work has gotten so crazy again that I need to do that again for an indefinite amount of time. I still am on the podcast. You still will hear me at least once per round, maybe twice. And I will hopefully be doing more solo mode episodes because of it. But yeah, the way my life is structured right now, I just don't have time to play games enough to be able to review them twice a month. My gaming time just shrinks. I haven't had nights. I haven't gamed at night in like a year because, I'm not free until 8:30 or 9 because I have to put my children down, and then I'm dead tired. And then I would try to get a game in during my lunch break, but work has gotten so crazy now my lunch break is gone. So I have no time for gaming, at least to the point where I could be reviewing games and feeling like I'm giving you guys my all and giving these games the amount of plays they deserve to get a good review. So once around for me. And Trey has stepped forward and said he will be helping out in the co-hosting duties. Jennifer and Ben have also said they will lend a hand when possible, but I think Trey will be basically doing what I was doing before, which is every other round, and Ben and Jennifer will also step up maybe once a round each and host. So the good thing is you're going to get different voices, more voices, new people as the co-host. We switch it up, and I think we'll get some cool, fun combinations going there.
Absolutely, and things change on a dime, especially in our business, and we hope very much that when your workload lessens. First of all, I hope your workload doesn't lessen. You're doing great right now. I was thinking, like, could I, if Trey didn't step up to be the co-host along with me, could I do every week by myself? And my workload is getting pretty crazy right now too. So we're just in one of those times. So I'm really, really glad. One of the great things about having your entire gaming group be on your podcast, exactly, is that you have a lot of backup and a lot of help. And we look forward to the time where you can come back to being a regular host. And in the meantime, I very much enjoy when you are doing your episodes because, when you're the host, it's never your topic, right? It's always somebody else's topic. So that's really fun. I think that's going to be a great thing. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's it. Should we let everybody hear us play a game of Avalon?
Yeah. So let's just say that you can always contact us at contact@gamebrainpod.com. And looking forward to regular episodes starting next week again. Thank you guys so much for listening to us for 100 episodes, for keeping us going. Everything that you post on Facebook, every email that you send us, every sommelier request you send us, it is wind in our sails, and we really appreciate it. And now, please enjoy Game Brain. It's the very, very chaotic Game Brain crew playing their most played, probably their favorite, but definitely their most played game of Avalon.
Trust no one.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you very well might enjoy the other videos you now see being suggested to you on screen. Also, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could like, share, or subscribe to our Game Brain channel. Thanks so much.